There you go. So hello, hello, hello. My name is Trish Ahjel Roberts, and welcome to today's Live with Trish. It is International Women's Day, and to celebrate, we have this amazing panel of women. We are across 3 continents, and our topic is going to be creating healthy boundaries. So with me today, I have Yuliana Francie. She is an author of the book Unbecoming You, 21 Days to Living Life on Your Own Terms. And she's joining us from Australia. And then I have Malini Sarma, my sister from another mother, joining us from India. And she is an amazing podcaster with the Gladiatrix Podcast. And then my longtime friend, Deb Marcano, is on the West Coast and in Los Angeles, and she is an actor. And of course, I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia. So welcome, ladies. I'm so excited about this.
Hello, hello.
We're going to be talking about boundaries, which is always like a hot topic. And I think it's a really good topic for International Women's Day. But first, I want to kind of introduce you to our audience. So first, Yuliana, I know you just had a book come out. So I want to find out all about your book. So can you just kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have a copy of my book here. Hope you can see it. There you go. Unbecoming You. I released this on my birthday on the 1st of February in celebrations of, remembering who I truly am and why I do what I do in life. I call this book Unbecoming You. It's a topic and a life experience for me for breaking through the limiting belief of not being good enough, the condition and the label that we probably self-impose for us to then comply to the society expectation based on those labeling. Mm-hmm. So in a short way of saying this is, when we were first born, we never say that you were born and you either Asian, Indian, or any of your skin color, you're male or you're female. But as soon as we start labeling ourselves, we kind of adopt who we are and how we behave, how we express ourselves in life according to this label, like woman must behave this way or woman must do this. What it does, it's creating our life that is not true to us. And we then wonder why we are so resentful about life and we feel so miserable about our own life, right? So to me, what I say unbecoming is the revelation of our authentic loving and being who we once rejected out of shame and guilt because it was not good enough.
And you actually have an interesting story because although you live in Australia, I think you're Chinese and you were raised in Indonesia. Is that right? That's good.
Yeah. I'm soon celebrating my anniversary of 25 years living in Sydney, Australia. Oh, wow. Yeah, so I spent most of my time actually in Australia more than in Indonesia. But I was born in the 70s or late 70s when, as a Chinese, as a woman in a small village of Indonesia, I experienced what it feels like through the discrimination and racism. And that's really shaped, who I am in a way. When I first came to Australia, it's actually feel kind of liberating in a way, but then I also have this self-realization that, oh wow, I can actually have a right. I actually have something to say where I wasn't before.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. And I know Deb has traveled the world a lot. I know that you spent some time in Indonesia. So Deb, we were just talking before we started recording about projects that you have coming up. So tell us a little bit. You have such wonderful travel stories, and your work as an actor is so inspiring to me. I feel like she and I are both living our dreams at the same time. So just tell us a little bit about what you got going on.
So actually tonight I have my first voiceover role, and it's in a film called Triggers, and I'm the trigger. It's about mental health, and triggers is something that we all have dealt with, and some of us are still dealing with them. So that's screening tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time on Fox Soul Screening Room on their YouTube channel. And I'm also another voiceover. I'm the mother of the lead, and the podcast is called What Happened in Skinner. And we're nominated for the Ambies, and that's happening on March 22nd.
Okay, that's exciting.
And I also have a nonprofit, which is in Florida, but that's another topic. So I have a lot going on.
That's fine. And what I can do is I can post all of this kind of information. So if viewers want to follow us and find out what you're doing, that they can find it. But you can tell us about Florida. Was it Florida?
Yeah, it's going to be an artist residence for seasoned artists. Seasoned artists are artists who are over age 50, such as myself.
Okay.
And lots of times people, they're like, oh, they're old. They don't have anything to offer, which is actually not the case. So that's why I'm having the artist residence.
I was going to say, I've got seasoning. I've got seasoning. I think some of us here have some seasoning too.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I love hearing that stuff. And Malini, my friend, I haven't seen you in so long because you've been in India. What are you up to?
Right. So, hi, everybody. My name is Malini, and I'm the host of the Gladiatrix Podcast. It's called Gladiatrix Hear Me Roar. And I started this podcast about 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, after I came back after a world tour where I traveled around the world by myself for the first time ever. And I was talking about stories of women from around the world and how we are, in spite of everything that's going on, we are able to overcome whatever is thrown our way, and we come out as this fearless warrior that, and take on the world. And, it's like, we just like this warrior woman. That's why it's called Gladiatrix. And I just I just crossed 100 episodes. So I'm really excited about that. February, I had a challenge where I was recording an episode every single day. So this was very different from what I'm normally used to. And there was a huge challenge, and I just completed that. So I'm really excited. And I basically talked to the mission of my podcast is to talk to at least one woman from every country in the world. I actually wanted to travel to every country, but then COVID happened. And so I had to kind of pivot and figure out how I can make it happen. So right now, I think I've already talked to women from about 30 countries, but I'm always looking for, stories. And it doesn't have to be like, if I've already talked to somebody from that country, it doesn't mean I'm not going to talk to them again, but I'm always looking for a great story for inspiration. Because like Trish said, and as like Yuliana said, we're women, we tend to kind of downplay ourselves and not give ourselves a lot of credit. And there'll be so many other people are just waiting to hear that one story. It's like, oh my God, if she can do it, then I can do it. And that's what the whole purpose of my podcast is. So yeah. And right now, yes, I'm in India. I was born and raised here. And yeah, like Yuliana, I just actually I lived in the United States longer, almost 30 years. And I actually came back because I had to help my parents. I help all my families here. So I came back to help my parents. Have been here for a few months, and I should be heading back to the US soon, but until things are taken care of here, I'll be here for a bit. So thank you, Trish, for inviting me. And I'm so happy to meet all of you. This is great. I'm really excited to be here. Yes.
And so, Deb, I was asking you about Indonesia because when I first met you, you used to go back and forth to Indonesia a lot, didn't you? Weren't you?
Yes.
Buying stuff? She always brought all these great stuffs and she would resell them. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about that at all before we kind of move on, or I don't know.
Well, I'm actually going to start. I had planned to start traveling again, but then the pandemic happened. So we'll see. I am going to have another shop. So you'll be able to shop with me again soon.
Okay. All right. So today's International Women's Day, and I had never really looked at the history of it before. It was actually Yuliana who really brought it to my attention. I was like, oh, this will be fun. But when I looked up the history, I found out that the very first International Women's Day took place in 1908 in New York City, when 15,000 women marched for shorter work hours, better pay, and the right to vote. Like, we forget that it's not even that long ago that women did not have the right to vote, let alone, marginalized women or women of color. So it just blows me away sometimes when I look at how these things are not that long ago. And then in 1911, the movement went from just the US only to becoming international. I think our topic today is a perfect topic for International Women's Day. We're going to be talking about creating healthy boundaries. So anyone who follows me knows that I work as a life coach. I specialize in self-actualization and also diversity, equity, and inclusion. But a lot of times when I talk to my clients, I realize for some reason, I'm pretty good with my boundaries. And I don't know if it is because of trauma that I kind of worked through in my past that made me kind of get in the habit of saying no a lot when I wanted to, or saying yes when I wanted to. But I feel like my boundaries are pretty good, but I've noticed with clients that these boundary issues come up a lot. And a lot of times they're connected to guilt, like I can't say no because then I'll feel guilty. But this is interesting. So your personal boundaries are basically the rules of engagement around your likes, your dislikes, and the way you spend your time. And they're applicable at work, at home, and I would also include in the bedroom, right? They're bedroom boundaries. They communicate your sense of self-love, self-respect, autonomy, individuality, and basically wherever you go, your boundaries go with you. So they're kind of like a fence protecting you from, things that you don't want and things that you do want. And really, when we talk about mental health, it's a big part of keeping yourself feeling well mentally, because you're not letting people just kind of do whatever they want to with your time or your space or your presence. So I put together 5 tips to keep your boundaries in tip-top shape. And I'm going to go with them. I'm going to go through them with you guys. And I want you guys to tell me what your experiences are, or what your tips are as well. So the first one that came to me was that you really have to get to know yourself, because like you can't really have a boundary if you don't know what you like and what you don't like, or what you want and what you don't want. Does anyone have any comment on self-awareness? Or I know Yuliana is our boundary expert today. Do you have any comment on that?
Well,
You talk about it in your book, right?
Yeah, for me, boundary is actually an act of self-love, and you cannot love yourself without boundary, because I love this saying from Lao Tzu: love is actually a decision, not an emotion. It's the decision that we have to choose and take in every opportunity to respect ourselves. And I think boundary is like what you say, it's a barrier, right? It's to create this barrier between us and other person. It's about having, and if we talk about the society expectation, it's about what is our true responsibility, value, commitment to what is society expectations and projection of that upon us. So when we set a boundary, it's actually we teach others how to treat us, how to respect us. That's how I define boundary. And like what you say, boundary require us to know ourselves. I think one of the big thing that I talk about unbecoming in my book is actually really getting to know your true self, because this label is actually not you. And without you knowing what you want and how you want to be treated, there is no boundary, because you allow everyone to do whatever they want. It's like you open your house to everybody, welcome, and just invite my place.
Yeah. And the thing is, you have to be careful that it's not like a wall, it's not a wall to keep people out. It's just kind of like rules of engagement. Like if you want to come to my party, like the Trish party, you know, you got to know what the rules, you got to know the special door knock kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was, I was looking in, I guess Jack Canfield is a little bit of a mentor for me. I've been to, that's where we met. I forget, we met at the Canfield retreat. So he's a little bit of a mentor to me. And in his book, The Success Principles, he talks about making I want lists, which I think I have something similar in my book, 12 Steps to Mind-Blowing Happiness, but it's ways of figuring out like what you like. So with his, it's like 30 things I want to have, 30 things I want to do before I die, and 30 things I want to be before I die, and 30 things I want to do. So it's like these 3 lists of 30 things, which is, people struggle with that. Like I give some exercises when I coach people, and sometimes it's like, whoa, I got 5 on my list of 30. And I'm like, you need to think harder because you need to learn who you are and what you want. Any comments, Malini or Deb, on self-awareness?
Yeah, so I had
you've experienced for yourself.
Oh yes. So I can totally relate to when you're talking about getting to know yourself, because I don't think I even knew that until recently. And just like
we have seasoning.
Yes, we definitely do. I'm in my 50s and I'm like, it's almost like it's taken me 30 years to kind of, I've been suppressing everything because you put yourself out there to take care of everybody else, and you kind of put yourself on the back burner because you're like, I can take care of myself later. I can do that later. I can do that later. Right. And I think after some time, it comes to a point where you can't take it anymore. You're like, okay, that's it. Even if you don't want to, it just kind of comes out because like, I can't do this anymore. And so when you're talking about knowing yourself, people are like, oh, but you're like this. Oh, but you're like that. We're like, no. I should know that. You should have to tell me that. I should know that. And so it's a self-realization to say, okay, who am I? What am I okay with? What am I not okay with? So that's why I would recommend like just spending time with yourself, knowing who you are by yourself, making decisions, which, oh my gosh, it took me, it was so difficult. It's like, should I do this or should I do that? And I have to ask like 3 people. I'm like, wait a minute, why do I need to ask somebody else before I make my own decision? But that's, but that's like a muscle. You have to, you have to make small decisions first. It's simple things. Should I wear red or should I wear purple? Should I wear, but this person doesn't like purple, so I shouldn't wear it. It's like, wait, what? Yeah. No, I need to do that. I need to make that decision. Once you start making small decisions, then you start to make bigger decisions about like, oh, how much money should I spend? Where should I go? And so when you start, the other thing I would highly recommend, which I learned a lot, is traveling alone, which a lot of people find very intimidating. They're like, oh my God, this is too scary. But you don't have to go, you don't have to cross 7 seas. You could just go, like down the street. You could just go to the park by yourself. You could start there and then right? And then start working your way out to bigger places and doing bigger things, whatever works for you. And then of course, like I said, it's time you spend by yourself because, the saying is, you should love who you are, because when you grow old, you're the only person you could spend yourself time with, right? Not everybody's going to be around. So you should like who you are so you can spend time with yourself. So
I like both of those tips. Learn to like yourself, because when you grow old, you're going to need to like yourself. Right? And learn to travel alone.
Right.
Did you have anything, Deb, you want to add, or are you ready to go to that?
No, I'm thinking about, Trish knows we've known each other for years. I used to have these really fun parties. And yes, that's when before I was seasoned. And so then about maybe 10 years or so, Trish came to the house for a birthday party and she said, I'm at the wrong place. Where's all the
I'm like, where's the goosh?
People, what's happening? I said, that doesn't happen anymore. So I started drawing boundaries. I always had a welcome home. I'm inviting people, but things started missing, or, I realized that not everyone has great energy. And so I'm more selective now. Those are my boundaries as to who can actually come into my personal space. Yeah. And I also notice how I feel in my body. Am I happy? Do I smile? Does my throat clench or my stomach? So those are signs that that's something that I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. That's a great tip too. Those are both great, like checking in with who's in your personal space and that physical reaction in your body. Because you're right, we carry our emotions in our body. Yeah. Yep. Love it. All right. So my second tip is to make yourself a priority. I think so many times we think that the kids are more important, or the husband's more important, or the job is more important, or, like we have a long to-do list, and you might be number, 38 on your list of things to do. And once you have, more of that self-awareness and that feeling of value for yourself, and you realize that your time is precious and that you are precious, then it becomes easier like how Yuliana was talking about really loving yourself. When you love yourself more, it becomes easier to say, you know what, I come before, Corey's snack time. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. Or something random for my kid that they're not going to remember next year, And, even with the airplane, they would say, put your oxygen mask on first. Like, we can't show up for other people the way that we really want to if we're not caring for ourselves. So is that hard for you guys? Do you guys have any thoughts on making yourself a priority? I see Malini's face. I know you always put the kids first, right? You put the whole family first.
I put everybody first. Let me tell you, it is one of the hardest things I've ever done.
They're not used to you not doing it.
No. It is so hard. You see, we come from a society because in the South Asian community, it is the family, right? The unit is very important. The individual is not. It's all about the whole unit. So whatever you do is for the group. It's never about the individual person, right? So if one person fails, like, oh, the whole family failed. If your kid didn't do well, it's like, what did your parents did not teach you, or they didn't do something right? So you're so used to thinking like that. So when you have to start thinking about yourself, it just sounds really selfish. It's like, wait, you mean I have to? No, I can't do that, right? So it's like, no, we have to take care of the kids first. Whatever money you have, you put it towards the family, the kids. It's all about that. So when you have to start thinking about yourself, they're like, wait, you mean me? For me? Somebody's doing this for me? It's like, so no, that's not even it's not a given, right? So you almost have to like fight for your time for yourself, or yell and scream, or kind of consequences for not doing certain things. So it is extremely hard. In India, it's very common actually to say, sacrifice is another name for love, right? In fact, that's one of my episodes I have on my thing. It's not, because you know what? Something happens to you right now, they don't care, right? They'll just move on.
They care.
You have to. They care, but I'm just saying, it's like the amount of, you spend so much of time. There's a story that says, the husband and wife, and the wife didn't go anywhere, and she missed weddings, and I had to take care of my mother-in-law, I got to take care of my husband, I take care of my kids and everything. One day she up and died because she was so stressed out. You know what? And so a friend of hers called to find out how the husband was doing. So, oh my God, your wife died, and you should be okay. The guy's gone golfing, and he goes, well, I found out that my wife, she died because she didn't do all these things. So guess what? I hired 3 more maids to take care of all those things. I moved to another place, reduced my hours. I spend more time golfing. I was like, you had to wait for somebody to die to figure that out? You're like, you don't want to wait for that, right? So you want to make time for yourself now, because you don't realize how much of stress you hold in your body, because you're like, oh, this person said this, but I'll take care of it. This person said that, and I'll take care of it. But you're holding all of that in. You're not letting it out. You're just holding it on because you're the king. You're the glue that holds it all together. So yeah, it's a hard one, man. And once you start making that decision, like Yuliana said, love is a decision. It's not an emotion. Once you make that decision, it's like, I gotta love myself first. And you start saying it out loud, people actually listen. Unless sometimes I feel I have to scream before people make a decision. And then I'm like, no, never mind. I'm not even saying a word. I'm just going to do what I have to do. If you don't like it, too bad. Talk to the hand, because the face ain't listening. That's how it is. So.
It was great. But yeah, I love that. Love is a decision, because usually when I hear love is a decision, I think of it as the decision to love someone else, like in a long-term relationship, which I have not been in, but I just imagine. But I like thinking of love as a decision for yourself, because like if you're not in the habit of loving yourself, it could just be a reminder. Okay, you know what? I'm going to do the most loving thing to myself or for myself in this moment, or make the most loving decision for myself in this moment, and make the decision to love myself. I like that, as an action as opposed to a thought.
Yeah.
All right, so number 3 tip for getting your boundaries in tip-top shape is learning to say yes and no with what I call polite enthusiasm. So like when my daughter was young, I would always teach her, okay, if somebody offers you something nice and you don't want it, you say no, thank you. You don't just say no, you say no, thank you, right? So it's kind of like that, like, do you want to go to for drinks after work or something, and maybe I don't want to go. I mean, I may not say no, thank you. I might just say, well, maybe I would say no, thank you. No, I'm gonna whatever, or no, thanks for the offer, thanks for the invitation, but I don't know, what do you guys think about your ability to say yes when you want something and no when you don't?
I think one
Now
thing
that
that I learned since I wrote the book.
Oh,
is
sorry, go
the
ahead.
saying, oh, sorry. One thing I really learned and embraced since I wrote my book is this saying, no is a complete sentence. Do not just over justify, and you don't need to over justify. I think we fall into this good girl syndrome, especially as a woman. We want to be a good girl. We want to please everybody. We want to be accepted. And our fear of being loved, it's so great that we would do everything, absolutely everything, to give everyone else, including betraying ourselves. And when I read that as part of my research and saying no is a complete sentence, and I thought, wow, it is very powerful when you start saying to yourself, no, it's enough. Like, not in the, I agree with you, Trish, say it in a very nice way, but I mean by you don't need to say
You don't have to
no
explain.
because, right?
Right.
We don't need this long sentence to justify why
Right.
we choose a certain thing. Because
You don't
we
need to make
have
up an
the right to
excuse.
choose for ourselves. Yeah.
Because I almost slipped when I said I was going to say no to going to drinks after work. I don't have to say no, I'm going to go home and watch, Dexter or whatever. I can just be like, no, but thanks for the invitation. Thanks for thinking of me. Yeah. I don't have to, because I know some people are like, oh my God, I got to give them a reason. Like, I need a reason why I can't go. I have to say I'm working or I'm washing my hands.
Right.
It's like, no, you can just be doing nothing and choose that you want to spend time with yourself. But Deb, what were you going to say? Because I know you wanted to jump in there before.
Well, I was going to say, now that I'm seasoned, I say no, and I don't even worry about it. When I was younger, you want to please people. You don't want to feel uncomfortable, even though you make yourself feel uncomfortable and you go out of your way doing things that you may not have wanted to do. And now it's just, no, I've got to go home and walk my dog.
Because you do.
Right?
But I tell you, that to me is one of the nicest things about seasoning. And this is going to be my new favorite thing to say. Because I think when you were talking, I think it was Malini who was talking before about reaching a point in your life where you're like, wait a minute, I'm not doing this anymore. That tends to be when you get a little bit of seasoning, when you realize like, okay, this life thing, it's not going to go on forever. I'm probably not going to live to be 150. You know what I mean? So I realized like, I don't have 60 years to figure out, other people's stuff. It's time for me to make sure that I'm living the life that I want to live. So yeah.
Yeah. In fact, when Yuliana said no is a complete sentence among my friends, it's like, I'm like the, kind of motivating them to say, hey, next time your kid says something, just say no. You're their mother. You don't have to ask their permission to do something. I mean, you're the mother. You're the one who has to give them direction. So next time you just say no. And they're like, I'm like, you do realize that no is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify anything for your kids. And they're like, they start making fun of me like, oh, here comes Malini. No, it's a complete sentence. I'm like, yes, it is. So, I actually wrote a post about it on my Instagram, and I was like, you could say no in different ways. When it's your kid, you're like, no. I'm like, no. I mean, you can say it in very different tones, and Deb can relate. When you're an actor and you have all these voice intonations, you don't even have to do it any other way. You could just say it in a different tone, and it completely conveys with exactly how you feel about saying that. Like, no, I'm really sorry about that. And no, I'm afraid I can't do that. Whatever it is, but the answer is still no. So,
and it's very empowering. It's funny because when we first arrive on this earth, when we're like little 2-year-olds and we first learn how to speak, we have no problem. No. Like, letting people know what we do not want. And over time, it's just one of those things that many times we just kind of lose as we get shuffled around in this society. Okay, so tip number 4 to get your boundaries in tip-top shape. This is an interesting one. So it's releasing resentments. Because I had to think about this. I was, doing some research for this topic, but I think looking at your relationships and seeing where you're harboring this kind of resentment, which is kind of this like simmering low-key anger, like many times that's happening because you didn't say no when you should have said no, like 5 years ago, or you didn't say yes to something that maybe you should have said yes to, or whatever it is, you didn't express yourself in some kind of way. Because, you know, you might have someone who, oh, they always think I'm going to bake the cookies for the bake sale. And I know, and they just assume that this is what, but you were the one who never said, I'm not baking the cookies anymore. Like, I'm done with the cookies, you know? So I thought that this was really interesting as a tip to go over people that you might have some resentment with, and then try to figure out, you know, do you need to tell them something, you know, or did you expect them to do something or expect some, because sometimes people are mad and you don't even know. Like you might be mad at someone and they have no idea that you're like mad about something that they didn't do, that they didn't even know they were supposed to do. So any comments on harboring resentments? Or releasing.
So I wanted to share something. So that I think is the most difficult and the most powerful thing ever. So is when you have that much of resentment, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You know, it's like that, right? So it eats you up inside because you're just holding it in, and it's like your insides start to churn and you're just like, right? But when you release that, it's like forgiveness, which is such a powerful emotion. But the best part about forgiveness is you don't even have to say it out loud. You just have to say it in your head, but you have to have that right intention. And the moment you say that, because I'm also just like Trish, I'm also a life coach. And when I work with clients, I'm like, all you need to just say, I forgive you. And they're like, I can't even say that because it's like so much inside. They're like, I can't say that. I'm like, just write it down. Like, nope, I can't do that. It's too much. It's like, you have to start somewhere. You got to practice saying it in front of the mirror. You don't even have to tell it in front of everybody. Just stand in front of the mirror and just say, I forgive. And they're like, I can't even say that. That's how much you've built up inside, right? But once you start saying it and you're saying it out loud and you write it down, it comes out. Then it comes out, it's easier to say it. Otherwise, it's all like inside. And it was like, no, I'm not going to release it. No, I'm not going to do it. It's like you're so used to that emotion, you don't know what it is like to let it go. But it's an extremely powerful thing.
I want to say one thing about forgiveness though, because to me, it gets really confusing because there's two meanings to forgiveness. So one is exoneration, right? And that's what people don't want to give. Like, you stole my cookie. I'm never going to say that it was okay that you stole my cookie. I do not forgive you, because forgiveness can mean that. It means like your crime is forgiven or your debt is forgiven. The other part is the anger part of it. Like, am I going to go through my life angry that you stole my cookie? So that's the other piece of it. And the anger, you definitely want to get rid of. The exoneration is not even yours to give. To me, that's between a higher power and that person. Like, I cannot exonerate you for stealing a cookie or whatever it is that you've done. So I think that whenever I hear forgiveness, I'm just always like, you got to make sure people understand it's the anger that you want.
Oh, yes, for sure. Because I am not forgiving you for the act. Yeah, I'm not forgiving you for what you did to me. Mm-hmm. But I am forgiving myself, and I am not going to hold that anger inside me because I need to move on. So I'm releasing the anger. So I'm forgiving myself for having to, I don't want to have that connection with you anymore, because as long as I remain with that connection, I will continue to have that anger. But the moment I release that anger, I moved on. I'm like, I don't care anymore. I'm done. Yeah. I'm not going to go through that pain
It's
anymore.
one of those words for me though, because it confuses people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I actually really like.
Can I say one more thing? I want to say one more thing.
Sorry.
Another thing that I love is like writing stuff down and burning it. That's all I wanted to say. Like, whatever the thing is, write it down and watch it burn. Go ahead, Yuliana. Sorry, I got excited.
It's okay. I got excited when Malini said about forgiving yourself, because to me, resentment and anger comes from boundary that being crossed. And why it happens, because we actually betray ourselves, and that actually forgiveness, when it's involved with resentment and everything, it's actually forgiving ourselves. And it's so hard for us to forgive ourselves, because it's, and the other flip side of that, what you said, Trace, about forgiving and giving other permission, but it's for us. When we forgive ourselves, it's like admitting that I made a mistake, indirectly kind of, so I made a mistake and I have to forgive myself. But it is not that, but it's like we take it as a learning. If we take a lot of time, instead of judging ourselves whether we right or we wrong, or we good or we bad, but we all learning, okay, all right, things happen. Look, I didn't choose myself as a priority, right? I betray my heart. I say yes when I should have said no. Now I forgive myself, but I can stop doing this. And forgiveness for me is when people looking for the happiness and peace, that's where forgiveness comes from. Because as soon as you do that, you actually say to the universe, I'm so done with this lesson as well. I'm done, I move on. That's how I see forgiveness.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that as well. I think that's important. You're right, learning to forgive yourself as opposed to not only other people. And I think that's part of the journey of self-love, right? Because we're all going to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
And learning.
And as women, we're very hard on ourselves. We're very hard.
Yeah.
We judge ourselves so badly. It's like we're always the first to find fault with ourselves. And I think that's where the forgiveness comes in.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I mean, I think everybody tends to be hard on themselves, but I think culturally, across cultures, there's so much objectification of women. There's so many rules, societal rules around women that, it would make sense that we are even harder on ourselves than, I guess, men are. I don't know. I gotta ask men how hard they are on themselves. Okay, so the fifth tip to healthy boundaries is just knowing and enforcing your limits. I gave some of mine. So I feel like I have certain limits that I know, like I love to curse, I have some favorite words that I will not share today, but I don't like people like cursing at me in anger. So like if somebody wants to yell and curse at me, I'm kind of like, you're gonna have to talk to me later. And I wasn't always like that. There was a time when I would be just in there with them going at it. But now that I have seasoning, which is my new favorite thing, now that I have seasoning, I don't like that so much anymore. So it's like, that's like one of my boundaries where, I'll just talk to you later. And then another one that came to mind is like, if somebody says something in my presence that's like homophobic or transphobic or racist or, colorist or, is that a word? You know what I mean? Like something like that. I feel like I need to say something, that I can't just let that be in my presence. But yeah, I feel like my boundaries help me to preserve my space, like how Deb was talking about earlier, like I don't want that negative energy in my space, So what do you guys think? Do you have any special techniques for enforcing your boundaries, or any particular?
Can I share a story?
Yes, I love stories.
So I don't know if you guys have heard Helen Mirren, the actress, she always said, I wish I started saying F you a long time ago. Okay. And so I grew up in a military family, and my parents, they were very strict about, because, protocol, right? Because, as an officer, you have to conduct yourself in a certain way. And so they're very particular about how you speak. And so we were like always that if no cuss words are allowed, you kind of wash wash your mouth with soap and water. That was truly that way. So we had to be very particular, careful about how we spoke, very respectfully and everything. So growing up, I mean, that was how it was. And so as I was an adult, that was my thing. It was like, no, I don't curse, and I don't curse. And my sister, she goes, are you sure? I mean, do you know how much how satisfaction you get by just cursing? And I'm like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. Well, I turned 45. I think something snapped in me, okay? Because all hell broke loose after that. She goes, I think you need to go to a room and just scream it out really loud, because you will realize how good it feels. And I was like, okay, I am going to try that. And let me tell you, after that, yeah, I'm a different person right now. And so, of course, like you, I don't like anybody cursing me, but I just get kind of raised eyebrows. I'm like, I wonder if they've been practicing this for a while. So I still have a hard time with it, but when when it's really frustrating, I change my accent, my language changes. My kids know I'm in a bad mood because I talk in a different language, and they're like, "Oh, she's upset." But I'm still working on that one.
It's funny when you say that though, because I remember being a little girl, and I must have said some kind of bad word. And think how programmed I was because I went and washed my own mouth. Maybe I was just kind of not that smart. Or maybe I wanted to know what it tasted like. I don't know what I was doing, but I remember that. So, all right. Anyone else?
Well, I'm a cursor.
Go ahead, Deb.
I'm a cursor, and I don't have problems with anyone cursing at me because we're human. We're not robots. We have emotions and we express them. So as long as you don't hit me, that's fine. But you also need to know, why is the person that angry? Why are they responding or reacting in this manner? So, how can we talk it out? If it gets to the point where we can't talk about it, no one runs around saying fire, fire. They say fire, fire. There's a reason why you're that, intense. What's happening right now? So if when I get into that situation, and I don't try to, I try to diffuse the situation and not really scream anymore, but you'll hear it in my tone. I remember having a discussion with someone that I truly love, and she kept saying, your tone. And it was because I don't, you're hearing it in my tone because you're not going to hear what I really want to say to you right now.
Yeah.
But, and so that was my way of controlling, not screaming and cursing. But I think that that's also doing ourselves a disservice, and we're not validating our own boundaries because we're suppressing what we really feel when we want to express how we feel. But we're taught, oh, you have to be calm. I'm not calm. We have emotions and experience emotions for a reason. We're human. Dogs bark, for the animals. People respond. You react to things. So to keep saying, oh, you have to be calm.
It's a perfect example of boundaries. It's a perfect example because our boundaries are all going to be different. What feels good to you may feel different to me. And what felt good to me at 30 doesn't feel good to me at 50, So it's a matter of figuring out what feels good to you and communicating that, so that you can have people come to your party with the right knock on the door.
No more.
No, I'm going back to my metaphor, my Trish party metaphor. You got to come to the Trish party or the Deb party and know the right secret, know the right way to communicate with you so that you can both feel respected. Yeah. So I totally hear you. Anybody else want to speak about enforcing? Go ahead, Yuliana.
Sorry. I actually like to think that we see that the playground, how we behave in the playground as a child, that ends when the school ends, but sometimes that still get carried in adulthood. And I like to always stress this analogy with my clients. People see the bullying or the bullier in the playground, and people say that that's the bad person, but actually who's at fault? Is it the bullier or us that's sitting on the fence and watch someone getting bullied and not saying something? It is up to each of one of us to have a responsibility to say and stand up and say that is not okay. We should stop tolerating bad behavior and we should start say something, and that's boundary. Because if each one of us to say, okay, that is not okay with me, how you behave, then you also actually do a favor for that person, because that person may not even know that his or her behavior is not acceptable to you or to everyone. It could be very different for everyone, but the point is people can only improve themselves also if you give them feedback. That it's not okay the way you speak to me. It's not okay how you say things, or it's not okay how you treat me, right?
Mhm.
Unless we give that feedback, even to our own partner. If we don't say something, we don't say that it's not okay, how would he know that it's not okay?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I was thinking about what Deb said too. And, I was talking about how people change over time. I've been in relationships that were violent. I've been in relationships with people who were out of control. And I guess for me, in my journey, I've seen people screaming out of control as like a precursor of showing me that they're out of control. So even in a relationship where there was screaming, but there was no physical violence, I felt like if I just left it alone, that was the direction that it was going to, just because that particular person they didn't seem in control of themselves. But yeah, so maybe if I never had that experience, then maybe the yelling would be okay. And I would just yell back. But I just reached a point when my seasoning got in there, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I like this. I'm not doing this anymore, So yeah, it's like it's just whatever feels good to you, whatever works for you.
It also has a lot to do with how you're brought up too, So
Yeah.
I'm a dance teacher, and I teach kids, and I know that sometimes I have to tell them, I'm like, you have to let me know, or this is not okay. This is, if you don't show up, I don't know. I mean, is it something wrong? Did something happen? Or is it just that, you decided not to show up? I mean, communication is very important. People need to know, and don't expect me to understand everything. How am I supposed to know? I can't read your mind. I don't know what's going on. So I think communication is super important. And the moment, like you were saying, Yuliana, in the playground, because in school, whatever they come to school with is a reflection of what's happening at home. So they think that's normal. So they come to school and they behave that way until somebody tells them that's not okay. They don't know that. So start young, and so when you see something, and now, like you said, Trish, season, I'm like, yeah, I have no problem telling you
I
stuff
like
right now.
seasoning.
Okay.
Seasoning better than seasoned.
Yeah.
It sounds juicier. I don't know.
So yeah.
All right, so that was the last one. I'm going to go back through them real quick. So the 5 tips we had was 1, get to know yourself. 2, make yourself a priority. 3, learn to say yes and no with polite or not so polite enthusiasm. I guess you choose. Number 4, release your resentments. Number 5, know and enforce your limits. Do you ladies have anything that you want to share before we close out about boundaries?
I did have one thing, and I think as most of us in this were seasoned, we have been through so much. One thing I would say is mental health is so, so important. I have seen, tragedies happen because they haven't been able to address it, or they didn't know that they could go for help. So if you need to go to therapy, it's okay. It's not a bad word. It's not a bad thing. It's good for you to be able to, get it all out and have a professional help you, because, your mother, your sister, your friend, your barber, your whatever, they are not trained. Yeah, they're not trained to help you identify what's wrong or how do you address that. They can tell you from their experience, but they can't professionally tell you what to do. So there may be something that you need, maybe it's just a little thing, but maybe that conversation needs to happen. So if you need to go to see a therapist, it's okay. It's fine. Mental health is super, super important because it totally impacts how you present yourself with life and how you work with yourself. So make sure you do that, and, be kind to yourself. Don't be so mean to yourself. I didn't realize how mean I was to myself until my coach was like, do you see how you're talking to yourself? Would you talk like that to anybody else? Why are you talking that way to yourself? I'm like, oh my God, that completely opened up my mind on how I, started having my own conversations. But I just want to share that.
Yeah, no, that the mental health part is really, really critical. And I'm glad you shared that. And I would also say, if the first therapist doesn't work for you, don't throw out, they used to say, throw out the baby with the bathwater. Don't throw out the whole concept. Just keep searching until you find someone where you feel like there's a connection. Because I know for me, I had a few therapists that were a little not very helpful before I found somebody who was good, who was really helpful. Any other tips on boundaries before I close this out? You guys have.
I know we all love self-love, but one of the things that I really embrace these days is actually self-acceptance. I know it's slightly different, but we don't, like what Malini said, that we too hard on ourselves. It's because we reject ourselves, we don't accept ourselves. And I think we should start to learn to accept who we are. And then I think boundary will come naturally because, like, we get to know ourselves, we start liking who we are, but just start accepting whatever it is, who we are, how, whatever good or bad or ugly, it's just who we are. We're just accepting. And the less rejection we put on ourselves, the less we're going to reject other people either, because it's a mirroring effect of our energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that sounds good. Acceptance is probably like a good first step towards self-love,
Yeah.
learning to accept yourself. So
I wanted to say, know what
Go ahead.
you like, what you love, what makes you happy. A few weeks ago, someone asked me she wanted me to do something. She said, "Oh, you're missing out." I said, "I'm not missing out. I'm about to board a plane to Dubai right now." So just because you think I should be doing that doesn't mean that I think I should be doing that. And I think a lot of us go along with, what everyone's doing this. I've never been one to go along with what everyone's doing. I want to do what I want to do. And I think that's the biggest thing about self-love, figuring out what it is that makes you happy.
That was perfect. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that visualization. It's like, you're missing out. You're like, I am not missing out. I'm doing exactly what I want to do, which is perfect. All right. So your boundaries let other people know that you have self-respect, self-worth, and you don't let other people define you. Like a fence, boundaries keep us safe from intrusion. And legendary spiritual coach Iyanla Van Sant says boundaries let others know what we will. And she uses these 4 words: what we will expect, what we will allow, what we will accommodate, and what we will tolerate in our space and in our life. Strong boundaries are critical. Weak boundaries allow others to easily manipulate, use, or violate you, and we do not want that. Having and honoring boundaries is a statement of personal and mutual respect. So thank you so much, ladies, for this conversation. I want you each to let folks know how they can find you. I'll put it in the chat as well. Deb, do you want to go first? I know you got your website, debmarcano.com.
At debmarcano.com and Deb Marcano at Instagram.
Okay. And Malini, where can we find you?
Just like Deb, I'm also on Instagram, Malini Sarma, and my website's malinisarma.com. I'm also on Facebook. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. And Yuliana, how can we find you? Where can we find your book?
Well, I'm also in Facebook, Instagram, and my website is yulianafrancie.com. And I have a special offer on yulianafrancie.com/book.
What's the special offer?
The special offer is with every purchase of your book, you actually get a few other bonuses. One of the bonuses is actually book about 6 different articles of how 5 ways of doing things to set boundaries, to stop second guessing yourself, how to release social pressure. That's another one of them. So I feel this article is to support you to actually go deeper from the book if you're willing to take. I also have a bonus of the journaling prompt for the book. Okay. So there's a few bonuses. There's more in the website. Okay. Yeah, come and check it out.
That sounds good. That's good stuff. Yeah, those are other good topics as well. So yeah, and it's like you can get so deep into this stuff. It's good. So that's it, you guys. I want to thank all of my guests for being here. I hope you all enjoyed today's live. You can visit trishahjelroberts.com. You see the theme. We all have our name as our websites because we're powerful women. So you can visit my website. If you hit the Start Here button, I have some goodies on there. You can get a free 30-minute coaching session with me. You can sign up for the Mind Blowing Happiness Circle. It's free for 30 days. And the next session is on Saturday at noon. We're going to be talking about building community, which is kind of perfect behind this conversation today. And you can also download my latest self-care ebook. It's actually the Book Club Leader's Guide for 12 Steps to Mind-Blowing Happiness. And that's it. I wish you all passion, purpose, and the realization of your fullest potential. Enjoy the rest of your day and may your journey be juicy.
Thank you, Trish, and nice to meet you, Yuliana and Deb.
Thank you.
Talk to you
Yeah.
soon.
Thanks for
Bye.
all